Spoilers, of course. Now before watching, pause this video, go watch the original story, or better yet, go play the story for yourself. I was so incredibly impressed by this that I don't want to be the person who takes a great experience away from you. This project has been consistently requested by you guys to cover on the channel, and now that I've experienced it, I understand why. Now there are fan projects that span generations, there are fan projects that kickstart professional careers, and then there are fan projects that come from some of the most unexpected areas of the series. Dragon Ball Sparking Zero custom battles aren't exactly known for wild, hyper-creative storytelling because the system itself imposes so many rigid constraints. It's easy to look at all those technical limitations and assume the mode simply cannot produce great work. And throughout the ongoing series on this channel, I've been showcasing stories that prove that there are amazing fan creations hidden in there, and this is one that genuinely blew my mind with what the creator managed to build. But before we go any further, my name's Artellings, I'm the local overanalyzer, and this is a series on the channel where I showcase your Sparking Zero custom battles in a hope to keep this game mode alive and thriving. So sit back, kick your feet up, because this week we're breaking down ajkeys Dragon Ball Sparking Zero Invasion Saga. Now not only do we have the story to cover in the game, but the creator has a prequel manga. We start 2 months after the heroes met Broly in the Super timeline. Goku and Vegeta are back to training on Lord Beerus' planet, and everything looks to be a completely normal day, till both Grand Zenos arrive on the planet alongside the Grand Priest. They are demanding another exciting tournament, and have already made the necessary preparations with the Super Dragon Balls to bring the strongest possible fighters to this world. Because there are now 2 Zenos, they want to see 2 Gokus. We then check in on another timeline moments before this event occurs. 3 years after the battle to save Earth from the Shadow Dragons, GT Goku is out on an adventure, training to get stronger and dreaming of another powerful foe. Suddenly, the words of a divine dragon call out to him, and he is instantly teleported to this new world, where he is met with himself. The Super Timeline party is confused by this child Goku. If he's younger than our current Goku, he must be weaker as well. Whis decides it's best if they answer their questions over lunch, and this is where they really find out how far these timelines have diverged. This kid version of Goku never met Beerus, he never met Jiren, and he absolutely has no idea what a god of destruction even is. The Zenos want the two to start sparring immediately, believing that if Kid Goku is strong, the fight will bring just as much excitement as a tournament of power. Meanwhile, Vegeta and Beerus start theorizing about what this version of Goku is hiding. He may not have God Ki, but he's still Goku, meaning he must have something major up his sleeve. Once the battle starts, it becomes apparent just how strong this child version of Goku really is. A brilliant touch in this match is just showing the high battle IQ of both fighters. GT Goku utilizes his smaller frame to maneuver around the arena and land quick hits on the Super Goku, while the adult version actually snatches the kid's tail as a clever way to pin him down. Up to this point, they've only been testing each other, keeping the pace locked at the level of their old battle with Majin Buu. But GT Goku finally asked for them to stop holding back. Both Saiyans drop to the ground and prepare for the real match, powering up into their Super Saiyan forms and charging right back at one another. I'm glad the manga chapter for this exists. It makes following this intro much easier. Since both characters are just named Goku, the custom battle text itself got a little confusing to follow. Having the extra context also gives a much better explanation for how GT Goku got pulled into this realm than what Sparking Zero's creator tools normally allow. With the pace of the match heating up, Super Goku decides to tap into Super Saiyan God, prompting the GT version himself to counter by unleashing Super Saiyan 3. Even with the massive surge in power, Super Goku notices that his younger version himself is still suppressing a massive amount of energy, leading him to finally skip straight into Super Saiyan Blue to see what his counterpart is truly hiding. GT Goku finally unveils his Super Saiyan 4 form. Super Goku's completely shocked by this transformation. The tail, the crimson fur, it's all entirely new to him. As the two begin to trade blows once again, it becomes clear that this version of GT Goku is far stronger than what we saw in the original show. He's been bored without a proper challenge, and now he knows this blue version himself is the perfect opportunity to truly push his limits. Down on the ground, the Super Crew watches in an absolute shock, with Vegeta growing increasingly angry that there's another Saiyan form out there that he hasn't been able to reach. In every single timeline, this low-class bum is always somehow a step ahead of him. Back in the air, the two Saiyans start trading blow for blow, turning the match into a brutal slugfest that only gets more exciting as they loosen up. They eventually back off and unleash their most powerful Kamehamehas, creating a massive clash that forces them both back. Super Goku then lets his GT counterpart know that he hasn't even been at full power. Much to the GT version's surprise, Super Goku suddenly bursts out in the Kaioken and begins to lay into the Super Saiyan 4. The battle draws on, but the more seasoned GT Goku ultimately wins this match. offering his younger counterpart some classic words of wisdom about not playing around so much in the early stages of a fight. Just as the match wraps up, Vegeta walks right up to GT Goku demanding a battle of his own against this alternative timeline version of his rival, but the Grand Priest, eager to keep the Zenos entertained, has already foreseen this exact moment. When granting the original wish with the Super Dragon Balls, he had actually summoned another warrior, one who had been momentarily frozen in time by his divine power, just waiting for this turn to step on the field. Now as the two Saiyan princes stand face to face, a battle of pride and royal power is about to unfold, one that will determine which Vegeta truly reigns supreme. Goku's amazed to see another Super Saiyan 4, left only to imagine the kind of raw power this version of his rival possesses. Seeing exactly what the form is capable of from the previous match, Super Vegeta skips all pleasantries and taps straight into his Super Saiyan God form, bypassing any type of warm-up. Now you actually take control of the GT characters in these battles. I already know someone is typing on in the comments right now about how the Dragon Ball Super characters should just automatically win, but one thing you have to keep in mind here is that this is a post-series GT character pool, and the Super characters are still treated with immense amount of respect. You are fighting legitimately challenging battles throughout these, all designed specifically to keep the Super cast scaling intact, while simultaneously proving just how monstrously powerful these GT variants have become over time. This battle is brutal, but GT Vegeta is the one dictating the pace of it. The Super timeline Vegeta is thrown back by how much stronger this form is than what he expected. He knew Goku was powerful, but this alternative version of himself is just as much of a threat. Meanwhile, GT Vegeta is actually growing a bit annoyed. He expected this god form to be stronger. Right on cue, the main timeline Vegeta shows him that he hasn't even given his all yet, flashing into Super Saiyan Blue and readying himself for round 2. Whis mentions that with Super Vegeta in his blue form, the two are now perfectly evenly matched. The two Vegetas start hurling criticisms back and forth, entirely unaware that they are just pointing out their own exact flaws, giving Beerus a good laugh when he catches the irony of the insults. But the Super timeline Vegeta still has one more trick up his sleeve. At this point, both Gokus are on the edge of their seats, neither are able to tell who's going to walk away from this match the victor. Running on pure fumes, Vegeta once again pushes past his limits into Super Saiyan Blue evolution. With both Saiyans at their peak, the sheer scale of their power begins to violently shake the entire planet. They lose track of time in the heat of the slugfest until the Grand Priest finally steps in and calls the match. Noticing that neither warrior has a single drop of energy left to give, the battle ends in a draw, with both Vegetas still furiously demanding to fight to the bitter end. Zeno is incredibly impressed, but he wants to see even more, turning to the Grand Priest with a brand new request. Both universes' warriors are instantly restored to full health, and the next challenge is made clear to the viewer. Zeno wants to see a 2-on-2 battle royale, the blue forms versus the Super Saiyan 4s. Goku pairs off against GT Vegeta while GT Goku takes on blue Vegeta. This entire segment is exceptionally fun, and I'm really glad the creator broke away from the traditional format of just having everyone fight their direct counterpart. Down on the sidelines, the Zenos are losing their minds with excitement. They clearly chose the right warriors to entertain them. However, the excitement starts to dwindle as all four fighters finally begin to gas out. Much to Zeno's growing disappointment, the battle slows down, and Beerus is starting to become terrified of the outcome if they don't find a way to appease the Omni King, prompting Whis to offer one final extreme route they can take. They heal the warriors up to begin once more, but this time they are granted permission to fuse. After a brief moment, both Gogeta Blue and Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta are reborn, staring each other down on the battlefield.
Okay then, I'll play with you a little bit. You actually believe that you're going to come out on top of this battle, don't you?
The two fusions collide, trash-talking one another and claiming to be the definitive stronger one. But the moment their fists clash, something unprecedented occurs. The planet violently shakes, but beyond that, something in the air literally cracks. Zeno, Beerus, and the rest of the attendings feel it instantly, leaving the Grand Priest at a total loss for words at just how much these Saiyans have grown over the course of this short tournament. In the heat of the exchange, Gogeta Blue begins pushing back the GT variant. With their fusion time rapidly running out, both Titans unleash every single ounce of power they have left. The resulting clash of their ultimate energy completely shatters the fabric of space and time, causing both fusions to vanish from the tournament grounds entirely as the shockwave of the power ripple across multiple universes. The two reappear in the sacred world of the Kai moments after, completely engulfed in the battle and becoming increasingly reckless. Before one final catastrophic blow can land, the Grand Priest steps in, forcibly defusing them both and ending the match himself. While the damage to the cracks in time is quickly repaired, the Saiyans are left facing a massive earful from the divine attendants. But during those brief moments when reality was torn open, an unintended consequence occurred. Beings from different timelines are able to cross over, finding their way into a place they were never supposed to exist. And right at the end, we are shown one of those exact variants, Goku Black, but a version who actually won. In his timeline, he successfully executed Trunks, Goku, and Vegeta, fulfilling the Zero Mortals plan. Now he finds himself dropped into an unfamiliar universe, but instead of being confused or wondering how to get back to his own world, he looks around and sees a blank canvas, another reality just waiting to be cleansed. The world this dark god has landed on is a distinct variant of the GT timeline. In this reality, Baby has just struck down Goku, but as he falls, seemingly bringing the end of the Saiyan lineage, an incredible energy suddenly registers on the planet, a presence harboring an even more malicious key than anything they've sensed. Goku Black has arrived, and he has already put his own plan into motion by ruthlessly eliminating Trunks, Goten, and Bola. Gohan and Baby drop down to the battlefield, bewildered. They can't even comprehend just how Goku could have survived that definitive killing blow that was just dealt, let alone how he's suddenly standing right before them, fully grown. Black merely responds to the Tuffle's confusion with riddles, quickly aggravating them both. Left with no other option, Baby orders Gohan to step in and kill his father. Gohan is toyed with from the start, left on the absolute brink of consciousness. Desperate to fill his Tuffle-induced commands, he taps deep into his own reserves to draw out the ultimate form for one final attempt to destroy Black. But even with that impressive surge in power, he doesn't come anywhere near the level of a god. Black effortlessly lunges him into a nearby building, leaving him clinging to life. Baby's left jaw dropped by Goku's behaviors, unable to understand what could have made him so incredibly violent and so pretentious. At the same time, Black notices that this version of Vegeta isn't the one he's used to dealing with either. When the Tuffle demands to know what's happening, who truly is occupying Goku's body, the Dark God simply plays into the confusion and mocks the Tuffle's deep-rooted hatred by callously labeling himself as just another Saiyan. As the battle escalates, Baby's forced to continuously mutate Vegeta's body, yet despite every single power-up the Tuffle utilizes, Black remains entirely in his base form, effortlessly dodging incoming assaults and landing devastating heavy blows. Baby pours everything he has into a massive all-out attack, but when the dust settles, the god stands completely untouched. Now ready to demonstrate the true disparity in their power, Black finally begins to transform. The sheer overwhelming pressure of this divine aura shakes Baby to his absolute core, leaving the Tuffle only able to mutter a single question: who are you? Now the god is literally dragging the Tuffle through the ruins of the city, shifting into an incredible savage and lethal fighting style. From a distance, both Pan and Majub notice the destruction and rush over. Both are entirely confused by what has gotten into Goku and why is he fighting with such pure malice. With Baby Vegeta incapacitated, Black begins to power down and calmly walk over to finish the job. Suddenly, Pan drops from the sky, begging the man she believes to be her grandfather to finally end the nightmare, destroy the Tuffles, and restore peace back to the earth. Black's fully intending to end it right here. But instead of targeting Baby, he turns directly to the young Saiyan and obliterates her with a sudden point-blank ki blast. Horrified, Majub launches into an aggressive counterattack. Intrigued by what Goku's personal protege might be capable of, Black allows a brief exchange to play out. But within moments, Oob is left completely gasping for air on the ground. Before he can scramble back to his feet to continue the fight, a devastating surprise beam fires from the sidelines, blasting him away. It was the Tuffle Vegeta firing one last desperate shot. Black turns back to look at the broken Tuffle, and right before he delivers the final blow, an idea sparks. Recognizing a potential tool, Black offers the Tuffle a choice: pledge his allegiance and join forces or die right here on the spot. Given that Baby doesn't even possess a fraction of the power standing above him, he realizes he has absolutely no choice but to align himself with this man. We quickly learn that Black's next motive is to track down Babidi, though for the moment his exact reasoning for targeting Babidi is kept entirely in the dark. The duo arrive on the destroyed planet, where Black begins issuing orders to Baby Vegeta. The Tuffle has no choice but to obey for now, but he mutters to himself that once all of this is over, he will find a way to become strong enough to slaughter him. Now that his mind has been opened to the staggering concept of the multiverse, Baby's new ultimate goal is to establish complete Tuffle dominance across every single reality. Of course, his silent threats fall on completely deaf ears. The god is simply too powerful for a mere mortal to ever become a threat. As they survey the barren landscape, they stumble across a reality where the Majin forces actually won. Here, Deborah and Babidi have successfully conquered the Earth, and the Warlock rule has just begun. Mistaking Goku Black for the standard Goku, Babidi confidently sends Deborah in to handle the intruder. But much like everyone else who came before him, the Demon King is overwhelmed and outmatched and falls at the hands of this god. Babidi starts to panic. He's confused as to how Goku is standing before him, but the confusion only deepens when he recognizes the warrior standing right next to him is Vegeta. Desperate, Babidi calls in his ultimate weapon, the Prince of Destruction Vegeta, who locks his sights on the Black. In this timeline, it seems Vegeta's been completely locked under the wizard's mind control, but we do have to remember this is just the standard Buu Saga era. These warriors don't possess a fraction of the scaling seen in the Super timeline. The Prince of Destruction begins to get absolutely demolished by Black, until Baby suddenly demands to take over the match. Despite already possessing a version of Vegeta's body, the Tuffle still harbors a deep burning desire for vengeance against the Saiyan Prince, and killing this alternative version will satisfy his grudge for now. Just by looking at him, Majin Vegeta can sense the parasitic Tuffle nature inside his opponent. While the two possessed versions of Vegeta engage in a brutal war, Black casually walks over right past the chaos up to Babidi, extending his hand and offering the Warlock a chance to join his crew for a multi-universal domination. Babidi outright refuses this offer, but right before the god can execute him, this world's native Goku suddenly arrives on the battlefield. He had sensed a cluster of massive evil key signatures colliding and stepped in to investigate. Realizing this version of Goku's a mortal enemy to Babidi, Black decides to launch an attack just to manipulate the situation and gain the Warlock's temporary trust. Black is thoroughly disgusted by this version of Goku, viewing him as a weakling who lacks any real power and has been forced to hide while his planet has been reduced to ash. Meanwhile, in the parallel fight, the Destruction Prince catches a glimpse of his true target and begins to lose focus on his battle with Baby. Goku pushes into Super Saiyan 2 and then accelerates into Super Saiyan 3, but once again the power gap is just far too massive to overcome. In the background, Babidi has finally finished gathering the residual energy he needs to awaken his Majin weapon. In this timeline, the Buu that emerges is Super Buu, and he seems to be exceptionally obedient to his master's commands. With everyone temporarily distracted by the chaotic arrival of Buu, Goku seizes the moment. He retreats, calling out to Majin Vegeta to follow him, executing a tactical retreat that the two timeline evaders can't stop right now, leaving both Black and Baby to deal with the wild, unpredictable force of Majin Buu. We then check back in with Goku and Vegeta. Goku does everything in his power to break the Saiyan Prince out of the mental prison Babidi locked him in. Eventually, the spell snaps and Vegeta is forced to come to terms with the horrific reality of the damage he just caused. Because of his pride, the world is in absolute ruins. Countless lives have been lost, his home is reduced to rubble, and monsters with strength far beyond their wildest nightmare are roaming the earth. Goku knows there's only one viable way out of this nightmare. They have to fuse. A blinding cataclysmic light erupts from the center of the ruined city. Sensing this massive surge of power, Goku Black can only smile at the sudden prospect of a genuine challenge finally showing its face.
I, Goku, will finish you once and for all!
Within seconds of being born, the ultimate fusion steps onto the battlefield, seemingly vaporizing Majin Buu and knocking out Baby. Goku Black powers up into Super Saiyan Rosé form, eager to finally get a fight in. Witnessing the display of godlike power, Babidi finally swallows his pride and agrees to join forces, realizing he has to rely on Black if he has any intention here of surviving. Now, the resulting match is incredibly long. The sheer volume of items used in the custom matches makes it a massive drawn out back and forth. There were a few moments where I genuinely thought I was going to drop the match simply because I wasn't on my toes. It's an incredibly difficult fight which acts as a perfect narrative for just how powerful Gogeta really is. All in all, I actually think this episode took me about 40 minutes to go through. But as impressive as the fusion was, Goku Black ultimately puts an end to the Saiyans and the fusion fades away from the planet. With the battlefield finally cleared, the newly formed trio can finally discuss their grand design. Black is highly impressed by Majin Buu, who somehow managed to survive an ultimate blast that would have utterly vaporized anyone else. Babidi is still deeply curious as to why the god of this caliber is specifically searching for a wizard like him, but the final answer Goku Black delivers is a twist that I don't think a single person could have seen coming. Goku Black's ambitions have grown farther than he could have realized prior to this traveling. He is now actively recruiting an army with the sole purpose of overthrowing and erasing Zeno the Omni King. As the new allegiance emerges victorious against the fused warrior, they return to planet Tuffle, deep within Baby's dimension, driven by a desire to strengthen his growing army. Babidi presents a tempting proposition. Throughout history, many powerful beings have fallen to the hands of Goku and his allies, but with the power of the Dragon Balls, a unique opportunity presents itself to bring them back. Warriors once lost to time, each brimming with untapped potential, can be shaped into unstoppable weapons. Frieza, Cell, Cooler, Android 13, and Bojack are successfully revived, each completely bewildered by their sudden resurrection. They lock their sights onto Goku Black and Baby Vegeta, sensing the sheer malice radiating from the duo. Before any chaos can break out, Goku Black steps forward and orders them all to stand down, warning that picking a fight will only result in them winding up dead a second time. This catches Cell's attention. He knows Goku would never turn down a challenge. This man looks like Goku, but the personality belongs to someone else entirely. The true nature of the situation is quickly explained to the gathered villains, from Goku Black's divine origins to the complete Tuffleization of the planet. Despite hearing how much Earth has changed, Bojack remains hyper-focused on exacting revenge against Gohan. That demand triggers Baby. His Saiyan puppet is not to be touched, and he refuses to let the rule of his planet be undermined. Tuffle Parasite takes down Bojack and takes over his mind, forcing the space pirate to attack the others to test their strength and establish exactly who the new leaders are. Baby goes on to defeat and tuffleize Android 13 as well before sending him into the battle to face Frieza. But it isn't too long into the battle where he decides that he's just going to deal with them himself. The Cosmic Emperors prove to be no match for this enhanced Tuffle power. Both are soundly defeated and have their minds completely taken over by the parasite. Cell remains the lone holdout, thoroughly enthralled by the prospect of facing such powerful foes, especially one that's occupying Goku's physical form. Cell has grown significantly during the time in the afterlife, reaching a level comparable to a Super Saiyan 3, and he manages to hold off the other infected warriors with relative ease. Carving his own way through the brainwashed roster, the perfect android finally gets a chance to challenge the entity calling himself a god. Yet despite the ultimate machine's best efforts, the perfect being has to accept that he's completely outclassed here. Black is impressed by the display. Intrigued by the concept of Cell's infinite potential for growth, he extends his hand as an invitation to join the ranks. And this time Cell accepts, though he makes a silent vow that he will eventually fight his way to the absolute top of that totem pole. With the entire roster finally on the same page, Black instructs Babidi to use a specialized spell to extract the concentrated energy directly from their hearts. The ritual proves an immediate success. The massive surge of malice energy condenses on the battlefield, summoning the reality warping demon Janemba. Cell watches in an absolute awe of the creature's raw pressure, prompting Black to use this new opponent as a live demonstration of just how far that top of the totem pole spot really is. The rose-colored warrior handles Janemba without breaking a sweat, leaving Cell to question the nature of his divine transformation and wonder just how deep Goku Black's power truly runs. Babidi weaves his magic one final time, and when Janemba opens his eyes, the chaotic beast is completely obedient to the cause. The deity, now surrounded by a growing army of powerful forces, sets his sight on planet Namek. His goal is to gather the Dragon Balls and resurrect the legendary Super Saiyan. Driven by a deep fascination with the Saiyan race, he wants to witness firsthand the warriors said to embody their most fearsome primal potential. Confident in his overwhelming power, the god sees no threat in awakening such a force. In his mind, the Saiyans at this point in time are beneath him. It is simply a chance to gain another unstoppable asset for his upcoming invasion. However, what he fails to understand is that some powers were never meant to be controlled, and the Dragon Balls are gathered, the wish is made, and Broly awakens on planet Namek. And at the first sight of that familiar face, his rage begins to violently boil over. Before he can even charge his target, Frieza is sent in as his first test. The Alliance clearly underestimates the sheer velocity of the Saiyan strength, and it doesn't take long for Frieza to be soundly defeated. Watching from the sidelines, Cell grows increasingly impressed. As one of the few fighters who hasn't been subjected to tuffleization, he's fully capable of comprehending just how outrageous this monster really is, eventually becoming deeply annoyed that a warrior of this caliber was just roaming the universe at one point. Broly makes quick work of the remaining tuffleized underlings, slowly shedding whatever sanity he has left to get closer to the man he believes is Kakarot. Baby quickly loses his patience, furious that his elite Tuffle forces are being dismantled by a Saiyan. While Black wants to see the absolute pinnacle of this warrior's strength, Baby is fed up and demands this Saiyan die at the hands of the Tuffle race. He orders his men into a synchronized team attack designed to execute Broly on the spot, but despite that massive onslaught of power, the Saiyan tanks the hit and begins to warp the atmosphere of the planet as he transitions into his legendary form. At this point, everyone on the battlefield besides Black begins to realize they have a catastrophic problem on their hands. Broly locks his eyes directly onto Baby Vegeta, tearing through the remaining minions like tissue paper to reach his target. Fed up with the defiance, Baby decides to engage the monster himself. It's a brutal uphill battle, but he barely manages to scratch out a split-second window to inject his parasite into Broly and attempt to seize control of his mind. The strategy backfires almost immediately. The legendary warrior fights back, utilizing his surging power to completely crush and overcome the mind control, which only enrages him further. Broly begins to charge an apocalyptic beam, ready to erase everyone on the planet. As the massive blast is sent crashing down, Black steps in and unleashes his own energy to deflect the catastrophic attack away. We check back in on the Saiyans training with one another. They've been at it for days now, much to Beerus' disturbance as he can't get any rest. The Super Timeline Goku gets a great idea. He knows another super strong guy he can bring to the planet to train with the GT variants, and in moments Dragon Ball Super Broly is on the planet. The GT variants notice Broly and both begin to charge their ki in preparedness to fight. Super Goku steps in to settle the situation down, explaining exactly who this version of Broly is. He fills them in on how Paragus brought him to Earth alongside Frieza, and emphasizes that this Saiyan actually harbors no inherent evil inside of him. GT Goku is left even more bewildered by just how drastically their respective timelines have diverged. Recognizing an opportunity, Super Goku asks his GT variant to help train Broly. Once they begin to spar, GT Goku can tell that this Broly lacks any malicious intent. Broly has a rough time keeping up with Goku's pace at first, but he rapidly adapts, growing mid-combat until he eventually establishes equal footing. Watching from the sidelines, GT Vegeta quickly grows bored. He views Goku's patient approach as a waste of time and decides Broly is taking too long to grow. Breaking his silence, he jumps directly into the fire to train the brute much more aggressively. Under the relentless assault, Broly struggles to fight back, prompting Super Vegeta to chime in and tell his counterpart to cut it out. He warns that such an aggressive style won't help Broly keep his composure and will only eventually cause him to lose his control. However, Goku and Whis noticed a distinct method to this madness. Ignoring the warnings, the Super Saiyan 4 begins charging a final shine attack, aiming it directly at the defenseless Broly. When the dust clears, the legendary Saiyan stands back up, completely consumed by the uncontrolled rage. Yet GT Vegeta barks at him to harness that anger, feed it into the fury, and utilize it as control tool. The advice backfires almost immediately. Broly snaps, beating GT Vegeta to the ground and flinging him across the arena without letting him catch his breath. Super Vegeta is forced to leap into the crossfire, berating his counterpart for ignoring the warning. This Saiyan operates on an entirely different level. Broly begins terrorizing both princes, holding them off with ease before the raw pressure of his energy triggers a full Super Saiyan transformation. Both Gokus are forced to join the struggle, with the GT version baffled by the sheer viciousness of Broly's power. The four Saiyans throw everything they have at the Titan, but it amounts to hitting a brick wall. He simply isn't feeling their attacks. Broly begins charging a massive apocalyptic ki blast that visibly worries every Saiyan present, but right as he prepares to unleash the attack, Beerus casually steps forward and flicking Broly across the horizon and knocking him out instantly. The God of Destruction grumbles about never getting any peace and quiet, with these Saiyans constantly keeping him awake. Watching this effortless display of power, GT Goku is deeply impressed and doesn't hesitate in asking to test his own abilities against the Destroyer. Beerus is more than happy to take on another Goku, welcoming the challenge. The seasoned GT warrior throws out his strongest attacks, but the Destroyer tanks every single one of them without a scratch. Nothing deals any real damage, nor does Beerus show the slightest hint of fatigue. Mirroring how he handled Broly, the God of Destruction quickly brings the match to an end, knocking Goku out. Still, Beerus admits he is impressed. This version of Goku is incredibly strong in his own right. Seeing this display, Super Goku wants to jump right in to test his own current limits against Beerus. And meanwhile in the background, Whis receives a transmission from the Grand Priest. We then swap back to Planet Namek in the alternate universe. Broly has managed to defeat Goku Black, forcing this new evil alliance to face their match and retreat for a brief moment. Yet despite staring down a power capable of besting a deity, Black can only smile. His Saiyan cells call out to him to grow and adapt, pushing his strength even higher. He's highly impressed not just by the battle, but the raw specimen wielding such power. To buy enough time for Babidi to finish summoning both Majin Buu and Janemba, the duo of Black and Cell are forced to hold the battle against the rampaging brute. Cell is led into the battle first, but it changes absolutely nothing. Even trying to stall Broly for a few minutes feels like pure torture. Ever since his revival, the android's ego has been repeatedly shattered by vastly superior forces. The perfect being is realizing he is nowhere near perfect on the grand scale of the multiverse. Cell is violently pushed aside as Broly notices exactly what Babidi is doing and shifts his sights directly onto the wizard. Babidi desperately attempts to escape, weaving his magic in a frantic bid to stay alive, but Broly moves right past the spells. Just as the warlock is about to be put down for good, with the magical backup seemingly not going to make it in time, Cell unleashes his strongest Kamehameha yet. The desperate blast buys just enough time for Babidi to successfully summon his two magical minions. While Majin Buu and Janemba face the exact same brutal fate against the ever-growing Broly, Cell makes his way over to Babidi. He demands the wizard use his dark magic to unleash his latent potential. Utilizing Super Buu as a temporary distraction, the ritual finishes, leaving Cell leagues stronger than what he was moments ago. Now fully confident he can take on Broly, Cell charges back into the match. And for a brief window, it actually looks like the two were on equal grounds. But this version of Broly simply keeps growing. Throughout the entire event and against every foe he's faced thus far, he's consistently surged in strength. Before long, Cell is left gasping for air right on the ground. But right before the android can be squashed, Black makes his presence known to Broly once more. He's highly confident that the massive Zenkai boost he received from his previous defeat will help him overcome the Saiyan. But instead, that gap remains too wide, and just like everyone else up until this point, Black is knocked straight out of his Super Saiyan form. With definitive defeat looking almost imminent, the Dark God is left with one final option. Black demands the remaining energy of every force left on the battlefield. Mirroring that exact same collective power-up that originally defeated Broly back in the movie, Black is imbued with a massive reservoir of energy and launches one final attack. Standing before the Juggernaut, Black offers Broly a spot in his army, inviting him to join the multi-universal conquest. Broly doesn't flinch. He has absolutely no interest in the grand scheme, but he is intrigued by the sheer thrill of the fight. The fact that someone can grow this strong, this fast, to give him such a thrilling battle means Broly can only scale to even grander heights than they could. After a long fought battle, Black is ultimately defeated. However, Broly finally understands that this man isn't actually Kakarot, leaving the Dark God alive. Broly tells him to find him again once he's strong enough to put up a real fight, wanting to use the rematch to push his own limits even further. With the battle concluded, the legendary warrior leaves the dying planet behind and heads off into the vacuum of space. Cell is left entirely speechless by the events that transpired here. The unthinkable tier of energy and the effortless way these Saiyans seem to achieve it only serves to infuriate him further. While Black is still trying to pick himself up, Baby calmly walks over to him. The Tuffle charges a ki blast, directly mimicking the exact stance Black used when they first met in the ruins of the city. But instead of firing, he drops the energy and walks right back to the group. Dropping the faux formalities he held prior, Baby abandons the name Black entirely, now casually referring to the deity only as Zamasu. This episode reminded me a lot of the original Broly movie, but I am definitely curious as to why Broly opted to keep them alive. It doesn't quite feel like something the character would normally do, but based on what we witnessed up until now, every single decision in this custom battle is made on purpose. It's highly likely these interactions will come back into play sooner rather than later. And with the battle against Broly finally over, this fragile alliance turns its focus back to the Dragon Balls, returning to their original goal, reviving older foes to bolster their ranks. But it would see that fate has other plans. Back in Baby's timeline, the Dragon Balls are used. Instead of Shenron appearing, a darker presence emerges from the relics, a corrupted reflection born of pure negative energy, and with a sudden flash, the Dragon Balls scatter across the face of the planet, and from their fractured shards, entirely new entities take shape. The Shadow Dragons. At first, the army tears through the lower tier dragons with relative ease. A small detail included here that I really enjoy is Nova Shenron taking on Goku Black, displaying that exact same confusion as everyone else when he realizes that this entity is not the same man they thought it was. Seeing this dynamic play out really makes me hope we get proper dialogue or scenarios for it once the upcoming DLC drops. But soon, one specific encounter shifts this casual hunt into a nightmare far beyond what the Alliance expected. Cell finds himself face to face with Sin Shenron. Finally, the android has a genuine challenge to test his newly awakened strength on. He even implements his multiform technique during the match, attempting to tilt the handicap heavily in his favor. Sin and Cell violently clash, exchanging a flurry of blasts and fists, but Sin is merely toying with him. The moment the dragon grows tired of this encounter, Cell is instantly knocked unconscious. Babidi quickly sends Janemba in to take his place. Although the demon and his wizard master utilize every single trick and spell in their arsenal to defeat the dragon, Sin ultimately proves far stronger than anything they could muster. It's actually a bit funny. Every single member of Black's army is secretly in this for themselves. Nobody's truly working together as a unit. They continuously drop into disastrous situations where they easily could have held the upper hand if they simply coordinated their attacks. It really does create a stark contrast to the main heroes, perfectly illustrating why a team composed entirely of villains in this Dragon Ball universe is fundamentally doomed to fail. Sin feels an immense energy approaching, the very man he has been waiting for. Black steps onto the field, and it seems that since his encounter with Broly, he has dived headfirst into abuse of the Saiyan Zenkai boost, pushing it even further than what we saw in the official show. He intentionally lets Sin deal as much damage to him as possible, using the injury to fuel his power before transforming into Super Saiyan Rose and turning the battle entirely on its head with a massive jump in strength. Sin is cornered, but hope arrives in an unexpected form. Baby shows up to the match, accompanied by his tough-eyed puppet Bojack, who has successfully brought back the final Dragon Ball. With all 7 now gathered on the field, Sin uses the opening and swallows them all, achieving his pinnacle form of Omega Shenron. Omega immediately begins dismantling Black's army one by one. Once again, the villains find themselves facing a catastrophic threat, and the uncooperative nature of the team only make things worse. Yet witnessing the dragon's overwhelming power only makes Black want him on the roster even more. Cell, after being brushed aside yet again, completely erupts with rage. Since his resurrection, he has done nothing but lose every single encounter he has stepped into, and he's finally had enough. In a moment that mirrors Vegeta's most desperate breakdown, Cell launches an all-out attack only for it to do absolutely nothing, leaving him broken down on the ground once again. Black walks up to the android and tells him he should honestly just let him die right here, but he admits he's still far too valuable of an asset to lose. He tells Cell that he is plenty strong, but commands him to leave the real enemies to a god before powering back into Rose to engage Omega. Omega has been led to believe he is once again the strongest being on the battlefield, but Black quickly reveals that this was all part of his grand design. Having grown exponentially stronger from this recent battles, the Dark Deity has been holding back an immense amount of power, intentionally letting the Shadow Dragon believe he was the ultimate life form. On the sidelines of the battle, Babidi and Baby begin to scheme. Babidi whispers a new offer to Baby, promising him the top spot so they can all rule their own sections of the multiverse separately. This idea catches Cell's attention as well, as Goku Black and Omega keep the main battle going, Baby suddenly breaks into the crossfire, demanding to take over for Black. Seizing the moment, Babidi pumps even more dark magic into both Baby and Cell, heavily amplifying their limits. The duo prepares a massive ultimate attack to wipe out Omega, with Black joining in at the last second to provide the extra momentum needed. With Omega's full attention focused on deflecting the oncoming blast, Babidi uses his magic to creep into the Shadow Dragon's mind. A mental distraction buys Baby just enough time to inject his parasite, attempting to take control of the beast. Despite Omega fighting the dual mind control with everything he has, he eventually succumbs to the Tuffle's command, becoming yet another pawn on the board. I really am enjoying how much this villainous group fundamentally distrust one another. There's something incredibly compelling about watching Black's meticulous divine persona slowly dissolve into his raw Saiyan genetics, becoming increasingly reckless in his obsessive quest for power. You wouldn't expect this level of complex storytelling from a custom battle, and it leaves me incredibly invested in this second faction. They are actively forming a mutinous plan right under Black's nose, a betrayal he normally would have caught instantly if his vision wasn't completely clouded by his new pursuit of strength. We fade off this dark timeline and open back with the 4 Saiyan variants as their training arc finally comes to a close. Their time together has officially reached its limits. It's time to say goodbye, yet none of the warriors seem truly ready to walk away. Well, aside from Beerus, who can't wait to finally see these guys pack up and go. That's when Whis steps forward with a smile, offering a final proposal. One last match. It is a chance for each of them to unleash every single thing they've learned and prove exactly how far they've come. And so what happens as a series of friendly sparring sessions now build towards one final epic showdown. Both Vegetas line up first, continuously rising to meet each other's growing energy. But time is once again not in their favor. Realizing that these two could easily trade blows for eternity, Beerus and Whis simply let the next phase of the exhibition match start on its own, seamlessly transitioning into a Goku versus Goku confrontation. Both versions start at full power. No more holding back. No more pulling punches. They decide to go all out from the very first second. The battlefield is torn apart by these two variants unleashing their ultimate forms. Super Goku manages to push the GT version himself far more aggressively this time, but he leaves his guard down for a single critical moment, and GT Goku capitalizes instantly, catching him with a massive Kamehameha that seemingly knocks him out cold as GT Goku claims the win. However, the Grand Priest realizes this match is far from finished. Super Goku has once again ventured deep into the realm of the gods, flooding the arena with blinding divine energy as Ultra Instinct Omen Goku stands awakened. The two Vegetas actually halt their own fight, watching an absolute awe of this form. The two Gokus charge headfirst into one final cataclysmic clash, with the GT variant barely managing to scrape out the win.
You're mine!
With the dust settled, both warriors share a respectful smile and promise to keep growing stronger. On the sidelines, the two Vegetas officially wrap up their own match, with GT Vegeta telling his younger counterpart to make sure he surpasses Kakarot one day. With their farewells finished, the two GT variants return to their native timeline, leaving the Supercast to look towards the next major horizon for themselves as the curtain closes on this chapter. The final send-off was the perfect way to wrap up this training arc. Watching the two Vegetas get so utterly caught up in their own rivalry, trying to prove which prince reigns supreme, was incredibly fun to witness. Look, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't completely happy with GT Goku winning the final exchange over Ultra Instinct, but this version of GT Goku exists post Omega Shenron, meaning his base power is leagues beyond anything from the standard series. The author must be saving the Mastered Ultra Instinct form for another fight, or perhaps a more definitive battle between these two later on. Overall, this storyline wasn't what I was expecting. The first few episodes feel pretty standard, but once you get into the meat of the story, you can see how the villains are all succumbing to their worst traits. Black is completely devolving into the ideology of the exact mortal race he wants to rid the universe of, eventually realizing that he can use stronger foes to feed his own growth. In contrast, Baby Vegeta hasn't let his ideology go for a second. He's still furious that the Saiyans are running around unchecked, and he knows he won't be able to get his ultimate plan in order until Black and Broly are dealt with. Cell feels trapped in a constant loop of ego-shattering moments, which is perfect, no pun intended, for his character arc. His major flaw is his ego. But instead of growing from those defeats and realizing he can get better through perseverance, he falls deeper into hatred. He rejects natural growth, relying on magical power-ups to avoid the very struggle he would need to actually evolve. The other villains are mostly operating as minions, but I'm not upset about that. If every single member of the group were left to have their own major moments, it would only diminish the core focus of our main players. It actually dawned on me right after the match ended that both sides mirror one another beautifully, even down to how they both deal with their own versions of Broly. One team tried to teach him through discipline and empathy how to control his power to help him grow, while the villains look at their chaotic monster and try to enslave him through shortcuts and magic and end up completely broken by a force that refuses to be tamed. I cannot wait for the next part of this story. It seems like it hasn't been updated in a while, so I hope that the creator hasn't just completely left it behind. Before I close this one out, I want to hear from you guys. How did you guys like this one? Did you expect a mutiny to happen? What are you guys theorizing might happen now? I'd love to hear what you guys have to say down below. Now, if you're new here, consider subscribing to the channel so you don't miss out on the next custom battle showcase. Sorry, it's been about 2 weeks since I last dropped a custom battle. Usually I have them on a weekly basis, but this one was just a lot of editing. Well, anyways, that's enough from me. It's been your local overanalyzer Artellings, and I hope you have yourself a damn good one.